Usually is dark red, isn't it? I use dark red under all of the underpainting. But this time it's purple. Wow! Switching it up. Pew 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 pew. Because the dog's purple, so I thought it made sense to have purple underneath to set the tone, yeah, of the whole purple dog. Because it's a dog. Today we're painting a dog. His name's Peter. Pete. From Earthworm Jim. He's a little puppy dog. And then when he gets hurt, he goes all mad and spazzes out. And, is spazzing out... Can we say that? Is that allowed anymore? He goes buck wild and mutates and turns into a big, gnarly, scary dog and attacks whoever's nearby, I guess, but usually Jim, the Earthworm. And then you've got to, I think, like tickle him to calm him down or something. I don't know. He was in the video game. He was in the car. They did him dirty in the cartoon when they put him in the cartoon. They gave him clothes. He's like a little pinky purple dog in the video game, which was the original. And then they made the cartoon, and he was like a little yellow dog, and they gave him a little shirt and shorts. Oh, you can't have a naked little dog boy walking around. That'd be weird. In spite of everything else that's in the bloody cartoon, the whole thing's weird. There's a professor with a monkey for a head. That's weird. Anyway, I'm not painting a professor with a monkey for a head. Although, actually, I might paint a professor with a monkey for a head. That'd be quite a funny draw. Comment below if you want to see me paint Professor Monkey for a head. But this is Pete, the puppy, and he's got... he's just starting to mutate into the big dog, so he's got his big dark purple gnarly arm that's coming out. So we're painting that in the dark purple before we can move on to the lighter purple of Pete's body. Just the same as usual, really. I drew it in inks and then did the underpainting, and this is obviously all in acrylics, as we usually do. Where the fuck do you all live, where your paint's drying so quick? Because every time I get comments saying, how do you stop the paint from drying on the I don't know. You just keep it wet. Use too much paint. That's one thing. I squeeze out way more paint than I need usually, and then you just keep it wet. Put plenty of water on it, and you got to strike a balance. You don't want it so wet that it's runny, and you need 4 coats just for it to show up on the page. But whatever. So yeah, the usual highlights. These highlights, I think there's about 4 or 5 levels of highlights I did on this one. And this particular, I think this is the penultimate level of highlights on this arm, really starts to make it pop. All those veins and tendons and muscular bulges and the little splitty splats coming off of the arm. I like all the little bubbly bits I put in there. And this was drawn from like a tiny little video game sprite, like a little pixelated sprite of the original video game art. So I tried to sort of interpret what I saw as little bubbly bits, as bubbly bits on the arm there. So the arm's basically done, and then we paint Pete, the dog, the puppy, in his lighter purple, more of a lilac rather than a lavender, I'd say. And the same as always. Mix in a bit of white, make it lighter, and then do that on all of it. There's the bit on the chest where I sort of like blend and fade it in, which seems to look quite effective in camera, I guess. There's no real technique to that. It's just when the paint is almost completely used up on the brush and there's just a little bit there, and it's basically dry, and you essentially are dry brushing just to sort of blend the lighter shade into the previous darker shade, because there's less paint, so it gets a bit thinner and maybe a bit scratchier if you look closely. But yeah, there's no real like blending technique or anything. There are blending techniques you can use for acrylics. I've still yet to really experiment with them, but they're out there. maybe I'll get into that one day. And then I think this is perhaps the last level of highlighting on the dog's body. And then we get some blue. Wow, look at that blue in the eyes. He's got bright blue eyes. The design of the video game dog is so superior, far superior to the cartoon one. With his big funny blue eyes. Look how surprised and shocked he is. And then blue for the background. I don't know why I chose blue specifically. It may be because the background of the little sprites sheet that I was looking at for reference was roughly that shade of blue. So I just figured I'd use that shade of blue, and why bloody not? And you can see I started to use a big brush thinking, yeah, I'll just slap all the paint in, but realised, well, there's quite a lot of fiddly bits around some of the edges. I moved on to a much smaller brush just to, outline the whole thing in the blue background colour, really, which I'm doing now and will continue to do until it's all done. And that's, I had thought, maybe I'll do like some tone in the background, like dark on top and lighter from underneath. But when it came to it, I just said fuck it and just do it all in roughly the same blue. I think my paint actually did dry up, but that's just because this was one of those times I didn't put quite so much on the palette. But I just mixed basically the same shade of blue to use for the whole thing. Took the tape off. That's what people love it, and the satisfactory tape reveal. I don't know, outlines. I outlined more or less the whole thing, but I tried to not have the whole thing too boldly outlined. I wanted it to look somewhat cartoony, but not. I don't know. I didn't want the outline to be too thick and garish. But same as always, outlines and little hatchings of shadow and texture, little blobs here and there, the detail on the pupils and little wrinkles and creases in the skin. And I tried to do a few dashes here and there just to imply some kind of fur, on little parts of him, but not too much. I didn't want him to look overly hairy, but shadows and shit. And then comes the last bit, the highlights, the white bits, just to make everything look a little bit extra bold and shiny and bulbous and delicious and wet and tasty, nice. And then I wasn't sure if I was going to. I thought I'd leave it there, but then I thought it could do with a little bit extra, so I did put in this little bit of, I guess, underglow, kind of. It just adds just a tiny bit more depth to it. And I didn't do any extra highlighting or anything on it. I just sort of did one layer of the blue, and that's that.